Selene Ardyn ran. Every step splashed through the waterlogged forest floor, her boots slipping in mud, branches clawing at her clothes and hair as if the woods themselves were trying to hold her back. Rain poured down in relentless sheets, turning the forest into a blur of gray and silver. It stung her skin, mingled with the sting of her own blood. She didn't dare look at the wound on her side. It throbbed violently with each heartbeat, a cruel reminder that she was vulnerable, mortal, and so very alone. Her chest heaved, lungs burning, but she forced herself forward. Somewhere behind her, the sounds of pursuit, low growls, snapping twigs, something darker, echoed in the storm, chasing her through the mist. Every instinct screamed for her to run faster, yet part of her hesitated, frozen by the weight of what she had done. The mating ceremony, she had ignored it. She had abandoned her duty. But she couldn't leave that stranger to die, not when she had the chance to save him. And now the forest seemed to punish her for that choice. Her hands trembled, unconsciously raising them before her, and she saw it. Silver flames dancing along her skin, fleeting and wild, bright against the darkness of the storm. They flickered with her fear, uncontrolled, and she sucked in a sharp breath. "I did what I had to, but at what cost?" she whispered, voice almost drowned by the roar of the wind. She didn't expect anyone to answer. She didn't expect salvation. She didn't expect this power to be her only shield. The mist swirled, curling around her like ghostly fingers, and every shadow seemed alive, watching her, waiting for her to falter. She stumbled, catching herself on a wet tree trunk, the bark digging into her palms. Her heart pounded like a drum, echoing in her ears. She felt exposed yet strangely alive. Each breath, ragged and trembling, reminded her that she had survived worse than this. She had always survived. But tonight felt different. There was something in the storm, something she couldn't see yet but could feel. An awareness that chilled her blood colder than the rain ever could. The wind screamed in her ears, carrying scents she hadn't encountered before. Not just the metallic tang of rain on earth, not just the musk of the forest. Something else. Something powerful. Something alive. Her senses, sharper than they had ever been before, prickled with recognition, with the knowledge that she was not alone. Her silver flames flickered higher now, reacting to the presence, her powers straining against her body as if trying to pull her toward it, to warn her. She pressed herself against a tree, forcing herself to listen, to sense, to understand. Footsteps, or was it the sound of claws, echoed through the underbrush. They were deliberate, steady, too heavy, too controlled to belong to the mindless creatures that usually stalked the forest. Her pulse quickened further. Her body was screaming for flight, but part of her, her stubborn, defiant heart, wanted to see it, wanted to know who dared approach her. The forest seemed to contract around her, narrowing, suffocating. Rain soaked her hair, her clothes, plastering them to her skin. The storm became a symphony of chaos. Thunder rolling like the roar of some ancient beast, lightning striking and illuminating the twisted shapes of the trees for a heartbeat at a time, the shadows dancing and warping as if mocking her. She swallowed hard, tasting iron, tasting fear, tasting resolve. Every instinct whispered, "Run." But every nerve, every spark of silver flame whispered back, she was being watched. Then from the darkness beyond the rain and mist, a shadow moved. Not hurriedly, not clumsily, but with a quiet, deliberate grace that made Selene freeze. It didn't stalk, it didn't chase, it observed. She felt it before she saw it. A pulse of raw, powerful energy, radiating from something enormous, something regal, something dangerous. Her silver flames pulsed stronger, brightening with a sudden surge, licking the air around her fingers, reacting to it like moths to a flame. Her heart skipped a beat. She realized with a jolt that she wasn't just being hunted. She was being found. And in that instant, a shiver ran through her spine. Not fear, not entirely, but recognition. She knew deep down that the presence in the shadows wasn't just powerful. It was the kind of force that could consume her, or protect her. Her breath caught. Her knees threatened to give way. She pressed herself against the tree harder, straining to see through the storm, straining to measure the impossible power standing unseen before her. The shadow shifted slightly, a shape now just barely visible through the sheets of rain. Broad. His movements were effortless, controlled, confident. Every inch of him spoke of authority, of dominance, of something older than the forest itself. Selene's chest heaved with panic and curiosity tangled together. Who was this? Was he friend, or enemy? The silver flame on her hands flared, and she instinctively realized that somehow he could sense it. He knew. Her throat went dry. Her body screamed at her to run, to vanish into the storm and never look back, but another part, the part that always wanted to fight, to survive, to see what came next, held her rooted. She could feel it, the pull, the unspoken tension that wrapped around them both like the storm itself. Something told her that tonight nothing would ever be the same. And then, a single step closer. The rain couldn't hide it anymore. She felt it in her bones, in the tremor that ran through the forest floor. A presence so potent, so immediate, that her silver flames danced higher, hotter, threatening to ignite, and she knew with a clarity that was terrifying and exhilarating all at once. The hunter had become more than a threat. He was something else. Something she could not yet name. Something that would change her world. And in that moment, suspended between fear and awe, between exhaustion and anticipation, Selene Ardyn realized. She was not running from this night. She was running toward it. And before the storm carries her into the unknown, before the fire of her destiny ignites, you should subscribe to Anne's romance collections. Every heartbeat, every secret, every choice, it will burn brighter with you here. You won't want to miss a single moment of Selene's journey. The shadow stepped closer again. Closer than the thunder, closer than the mist. And for the first time Selene felt it, the undeniable pull of a force far stronger than any fear she had ever known. Something ancient. Something unstoppable. Something waiting for her. And she knew. She was no longer alone. The moment Selene's silver flames flared in the darkness, the shadow shifted, revealing him. Rylan Kaelor stepped into the thin ribbon of moonlight slicing through the storm, and for a heartbeat, the world seemed to hold its breath. Tall, broad, a presence that seemed carved from the forest itself, he moved with a controlled grace that made every movement seem deliberate, powerful, and unyielding. His eyes glowed like molten gold through the rain, piercing straight through the mist, through the trees, through her very soul. Selene froze. Her breath hitched, lungs desperate for air, heart hammering against her ribs like a drum announcing war. How did he know her name? Who was he, to step out of the darkness so effortlessly, to see her, to know her? Her instincts screamed to flee, to vanish into the storm and pray that the rain and shadows would conceal her. But something in his gaze held her in place. An authority, a calm certainty, and a fire that rivaled her own. The forest seemed to shrink around them. The rain softened in this strange bubble of tension, as if the storm itself paused to witness their first encounter. Every drop of water on her skin, every gust of wind, every silver spark flickering across her hands felt amplified, electric, as though the universe had focused all its energy into this one meeting. And then the attack came. A shadow beast lunged from the darkness, eyes gleaming like shards of onyx, claws slicing through the mist. Selene reacted instinctively, raising her hands, silver flames roaring to life, but exhaustion and injury made her movements sluggish, almost ineffective. Fear surged through her veins. She knew she couldn't hold it alone, not now. Not against a predator this close, this vicious. Rylan moved like liquid fire. One step, and the beast's momentum faltered. One swing of his hand and the creature twisted, snarling, retreating with a hiss that dissolved into the rain. He didn't hesitate, didn't falter. He was not flawless. There was tension in his stance, a barely perceptible strain in his muscles, a shadow of caution. But the power radiating from him was undeniable and terrifying. Every inch of him radiated dominance, control, and danger, and yet in that same aura, there was a thread of protection. A tether that seemed to reach across the storm directly to Selene. Her chest heaved as she realized that for the first time tonight she was safe. Yet the relief was tempered by awe and something darker. Curiosity, a stirring she didn't fully understand. Fear and attraction tangled together, knotted so tightly it left her tongue-tied and heart-stricken. She wanted to run, yes, but she also wanted something else. She couldn't name it, couldn't even fully acknowledge it. But the spark of recognition ran deep in her blood, a primal awareness that she was facing someone who could match her, who could challenge her, and perhaps, who could see her, truly see her. And then he spoke. The sound of his voice cut through the storm, deep, rich, tinged with a weight of experience and a hint of regret. Selene, I've been waiting for you, though I shouldn't have. The words struck her harder than any attack. Waiting for her? How long? Was he friend, enemy, or something else entirely? Questions spun in her mind faster than the raindrops on the leaves. She tried to answer, but her voice was caught somewhere between awe and disbelief. Her chest tightened, and the flames on her hands pulsed hotter, responding to her emotions, wild and untamed. Rylan didn't wait for her answer. His gaze, unwavering, measured, almost unnervingly intimate, held her in place. There was no need for explanation, no need for introductions. The intensity in his eyes communicated more than words ever could. He was dangerous, yes, a predator in his own right, but the danger was threaded with something else. Curiosity, interest, perhaps even recognition. Something primal. Something that acknowledged her power, her fear, her courage. The forest seemed to lean in closer, the storm pressing around them, rain soaking their clothes, wind slicing through the mist. The silver flames danced higher on her hands, reacting to the presence of his power, flickering in acknowledgement, a mirror to his own strength. Every muscle in her body screamed with adrenaline, every nerve tingled with anticipation, and yet beneath it all, there was a terrifying, exquisite vulnerability. She had been running for so long, fighting for survival, shielding herself from the world. And now, in this storm, in this collision of fate, she felt exposed in a way that left her trembling. Rylan's movements were deliberate but fluid, closing the distance between them by mere steps yet covering 100 miles of tension. He didn't touch her, yet the air between them seemed charged, thick with possibility and danger, with fear and desire intertwined so tightly it left her breathless. She could feel the heat radiating off him, the energy in his presence, the unspoken challenge in the way he looked at her. Every instinct she had screamed to flee, to fight, to resist, but every emotion, every hidden yearning urged her to stay. And then, as quickly as he had appeared, he stepped back. Just a fraction of a step, and the intensity between them shifted, pulling him into the shadows once more. The rain washed over him, masking his retreat, and before Selene could even gather her scattered thoughts, he was gone. Only the echo of his words remained, and the memory of molten gold eyes that burned straight into her chest. Selene staggered, caught between relief and longing, fear and fascination. Her heart raced so violently it threatened to burst through her ribs. Her silver flames sputtered and died down, leaving her hands trembling, empty but tingling with residual heat. The storm roared again, more violently now, as if the forest itself had noticed his absence and mourned the departure of such power. She swallowed hard, trying to find her voice, trying to force sense onto the chaos in her chest. But sense eluded her. He was gone, vanished into the shadows, yet the weight of his presence lingered, pressing against her mind, her body, her very soul. A strange, unwelcome longing filled the empty spaces inside her chest, mingling with the terror that this night was far from over. Selene Ardyn realized with sudden clarity that nothing in her life would ever be the same. She had been running, hiding, surviving, and now someone had found her, someone who could see her as she was, someone whose power could either destroy her or protect her. She didn't know which, and she feared that the answer might come too late to matter. And yet, she could not deny it. Even through the storm, through the pounding rain, through the chaos of the forest and the pounding of her heart, she felt it. The pull, the undeniable, irrevocable pull of destiny. The hunter had appeared, and she was caught in the gravity of his presence. Selene stood alone once more, rain plastering her hair to her face, mud soaking her boots, silver flames flickering faintly on her hands. But she was not the same. The night had shifted. The forest had changed. And somewhere in the shadowed corners of the storm, Rylan Kaelor waited, watching, assessing, perhaps even caring. Her breath came in ragged, uneven gasps. Her hands shook. Her heart still pounded like a war drum. She was terrified, she was exhilarated, she was alive. And with that realization, she understood the truth of the storm, the truth of the night, and the truth of the power that had come looking for her. Selene Ardyn had been found. Selene Ardyn pressed her back against the trunk of a massive oak, shoulders slick with rain, breaths coming in sharp, uneven gasps. The storm still raged around her, relentless, but inside her mind, another storm raged far fiercer. The echoes of molten gold eyes burned into her memory, and she couldn't shake the pulse of Rylan Kaelor's presence that seemed to linger even after he had vanished into the shadows. That gaze, it wasn't just strength. It was understanding. It was recognition. And it terrified her in ways she couldn't name. She closed her eyes for a moment, seeking refuge from the chaos outside and the turmoil within. Memories came unbidden, crashing over her like waves against jagged cliffs. She remembered the first time her silver flame had revealed itself. Not in defiance, not in control, but in sheer, explosive terror. Her pack had recoiled, eyes wide with fear and accusation. Whispers had filled the cold, cavernous halls of the council room. Too dangerous, unpredictable, cursed. They had shunned her, driven her into exile, and branded her as something monstrous. That night, the fire in her veins had burned hotter than her limbs, leaving scorch marks on stone, on wood, on flesh, marks that no one would ever forgive. She had run then as she had always run. She had wandered through forests drenched in moonlight, under skies thick with silver stars, the air cold against her cheeks, and found only isolation. Her only companions had been shadows, her only comforts the distant cry of wolves echoing in the night. And yet, in that solitude, in the stretches of endless wilderness, she had learned to survive. She had learned to bend, to hide, to endure. But survival had come at a price. Trust had become a currency she no longer possessed. To let anyone in meant danger, betrayal, and heartbreak. To let anyone see her fully, the power she carried, the scars she bore, it was impossible. And yet Rylan had seen her. The thought sent a shiver down her spine. Even in that fleeting moment, even across the span of rain and shadow, he had looked through the storm, through the silver flames, through her fear, and had recognized her. It should have been impossible. No one ever did. And yet the ember of hope sparked somewhere deep in her chest, fragile and frightening, whispering that maybe, just maybe, someone could see her for who she truly was. Her legs trembled as she forced herself to move again, careful, silent, aware that the forest could conceal danger as easily as it could beauty. Each step reminded her of the lessons she had learned in exile. Never trust too quickly, never linger too long, never allow the warmth of the world to reach inside you too deeply. Yet now, every instinct screamed in conflict. There was something about Rylan Kaelor's presence, something that stirred in her blood and shook her resolve. Memories of her pack's rejection came unbidden again. The cold eyes of the council, the harsh words, the pointed fingers, it had all been etched into her memory, each accusation a blade slicing into her confidence. "Your power will destroy us," they had said. "You are a threat to the balance of the pack." And perhaps they were right. She had always sensed the edge of danger in her own abilities, the uncontrollable flicker of flame that could burn more than just shadows. And yet, she had survived. Against wolves, against beasts, against the merciless isolation of the world. She had survived even when they all believed she couldn't. The rain began to ease slightly, the storm muting into a low, persistent drizzle, and for a fleeting moment, the world seemed to exhale alongside her. Moonlight filtered through the clouds, glancing off slick leaves, casting the forest in a ghostly silver glow. Selene's hands itched, a subtle reminder of her power, a reminder that she could not escape herself no matter how far she ran. She flexed her fingers, silver sparks fizzing along her skin, tiny and erratic, reflections of her emotional turbulence. The flames were not just a weapon, they were her truth, raw and untamed, something that had been feared and now perhaps finally acknowledged. And yet the relief of solitude was short-lived. The distant cry of wolves shattered the fragile quiet, a chorus of warning that sent a jolt through her heart. Her ears twitched, every sense alert. The howls were not mere calls. They were signals, messages threaded through the night, warning of approach, of danger, of something, or someone, she did not yet see. Fear surged again, a cold, icy spike down her spine. But fear was intertwined now with another sensation, one she had not felt in years: anticipation. Her body, muscles coiled, senses sharpened, heart hammering with adrenaline, recognized the rhythm of the hunt, the tension of predator and prey, and it thrilled her in a way she could not suppress. Rylan had stirred something inside her, something that challenged her carefully constructed armor of caution. He had not only survived her first encounter, he had unsettled her. Selene pressed herself against the base of the tree again, listening, feeling the forest, feeling herself. Every instinct screamed caution, every muscle screamed readiness, but underneath the survival instinct was something else. A flicker of hope, a whisper of connection, a quiet longing she could not yet name. Could someone really see her for who she was? Could someone stand beside her, not in fear, not in judgment, but in recognition and acceptance? The howls came again, closer this time, more urgent, and the wind shifted, carrying scents she had not recognized before. Not the rain-soaked forest, not the familiar tang of earth and moss, but something stronger, darker, predatory. Her silver flames flickered instinctively, dancing higher, erratic, reflecting the storm of emotions within her. She wanted to run, to hide, to vanish into the depths of the forest, but part of her stayed rooted, listening, waiting, hoping. She thought of Rylan Kaelor again. His molten gold eyes, his quiet confidence, the strength that radiated from him even in the chaos of battle. He had unsettled her, challenged her, ignited a spark of something she had almost forgotten: connection. He was dangerous. He was wild. He was everything she had learned to fear and everything she had longed for in secret. And yet she could not shake the pull she felt toward him, that magnetic, terrifying attraction that threaded through every nerve, every heartbeat, every flicker of silver flame. Selene's mind raced, memory and emotion colliding in a storm more intense than the one outside. She remembered her exile, the nights alone under endless skies, the pain of rejection, the ache of isolation, but she also remembered the moments of power, moments when her flames had saved her, moments when she had glimpsed the truth of herself in the reflection of her own eyes in moonlit puddles. She had been feared, yes, but she had also endured. She had survived. She had thrived in the darkness. And now someone had entered that darkness with her, someone who could see the flame within her, someone who could ignite a fire she had almost forgotten existed. A twig snapped behind her, sharp and deliberate, pulling her from her reverie. Her body tensed immediately, silver flames rising along her fingers with a sudden surge of instinctive reaction. Her heart pounded, every sense straining, and for the first time she realized with certainty that the forest was not empty. Something, or someone was coming. The howls of wolves, the whispering of the trees, the shifting shadows. They were all signs, warnings, signals of movement. Selene's chest rose and fell, each breath a mixture of fear, anticipation, and something more primal, more intimate. Her pulse hammered in her ears, resonating with the storm in the sky, the storm within her, and the storm of possibilities now threading through the night. She was alone, yet she was not alone. She was hunted, yet she was being sought. And in the tension of those contradictions, in the clash of survival and desire, of fear and recognition, she felt the undeniable truth. Her life, her fate, her power, and perhaps even her heart, was about to change forever. And then, through the shifting mist and shadows, she heard it, a distant howl, sharper this time, more urgent. Not just a warning but a signal. Enemies were approaching, drawn by the storm, by her presence, by the fire that had awakened within her. Her silver flames flickered higher, more intensely than ever before, responding not only to danger but to the fierce, unspoken determination building inside her. She would not run, not again. Not tonight. Not when the world itself seemed to have found her and begun to stir. Selene Ardyn exhaled slowly, allowing the storm to pour over her, soaking her to the bone, washing away doubt and fear in a rush of cold clarity. Her fists clenched, silver flames surging along her skin, her heart racing, and she knew this with absolute certainty. She would face whatever came next, whatever dangers lurked in the shadows, whatever enemies dared approach. She would face them. And she would not do so alone. Not if destiny, fate, and the faint, impossible spark that Rylan Kaelor had ignited within her had any say in the matter. The forest began to thin as Selene Ardyn moved cautiously alongside Rylan Kaelor, each step careful, deliberate, the rain now reduced to a whisper against the leaves. The storm had passed, leaving a damp hush, a wet earth smell mingling with the faint trace of silver flames still clinging to her skin. Moonlight glimmered through the broken canopy, illuminating a path of moss-covered stones, each glinting like scattered fragments of forgotten memories. Ahead, the trees opened into a circular grove, ancient and untouched. Its center was crowned with a stone altar, worn smooth by centuries, surrounded by runes carved deep into the earth, glowing faintly with an ethereal silver light. The air vibrated here, a quiet hum that resonated in Selene's chest, a rhythm that seemed to synchronize with her heartbeat. She felt the pull immediately, an invisible tether tugging at her soul, drawing her closer to something she could neither name nor resist. "This place," she whispered, voice trembling, her fingers brushing against the nearest rune. Her touch set it ablaze, flickering in silvers and blues, and for a moment, the runes cast shadows that danced like living creatures across the forest floor. Her silver flames responded, mirroring the glow, twisting and curling like they recognized something ancient, something primal in her. Rylan stepped beside her, quiet, watchful. The molten gold gleam of his eyes reflected the rune's light, and she felt it again. The same intense pull she had felt in the storm, the same recognition now magnified 100-fold. "Selene." His voice was soft, almost reverent, and yet beneath it the strength of the alpha, the predator, the protector, was undeniable. "This is the place I told you about." You're meant to see it to understand. Before Selene could speak, movement shifted at the edge of the grove. A figure stepped into the silver glow. Elara Thorn, the mystic of her old pack, now a recluse who few dared approach. Her long robes shimmered like mist and her eyes, deep and knowing, seemed to pierce straight into Selene's chest. A hush fell over the grove as she raised a hand, the air around her vibrating with power, the runes reacting to her presence as though acknowledging her authority. The one with the mark. Elara began, voice melodic yet heavy with weight. The child of silver flame. The one who will determine the fate of all packs, walks among us. Her gaze settled on Selene, unwavering. You carry the mark. You have always carried it and the fire within you. It is no accident. Selene's breath hitched. Her fingers trembled against the stone, silver sparks crawling up her arms, reflecting the turmoil inside her. She began, voice wavering. I'm not ready. I don't even understand it. I've never been anything but a threat, a danger. The words caught in her throat. Every memory of rejection, of whispered accusations, of exiles and shunned packs, crowded her mind like specters, choking her with doubt. Elara's gaze softened but did not waver. Doubt is your companion, she said. It will follow you always. But destiny is stronger. You may fear it, reject it, or try to run, but it will call to you until you answer. And you will, Selene Ardyn. Rylan stepped closer, placing a hand lightly on her shoulder. The touch was grounding, stabilizing, but also electric, sparking an awareness of every nerve in her body. I believe in you, he murmured, voice low and certain. Even when you don't believe in yourself. You carry power that can change everything, save everything, if you allow it. Selene's gaze flickered between him and the runes, the altar, the swirling mist that seemed alive. Her vision blurred briefly as she saw flashes of fire, shadow beasts with teeth that gleamed like daggers, and herself engulfed in a silver blaze, unrestrained, untamed. She stumbled back, pressing her palm to her forehead. The visions were not just imagination. They were warnings, glimpses of a destiny she could not yet control. Every instinct screamed retreat, yet the pull of the grove was undeniable, the call of fate a siren song threading through her blood. Rylan's presence beside her was constant, a tether to reality as the visions threatened to overwhelm her. His strength, his confidence, his unwavering belief in her, even when she had none, was a lifeline. And yet it was more than that. It stirred something deep inside her, a strange, terrifying desire to embrace the power she had always feared. To claim it. To own it. To see what she could become. She trembled, caught in the liminal space between fear and longing, between doubt and desire. Her silver flames erupted spontaneously, a corona of light encasing her hands, her wrists, creeping up her arms in wild, beautiful arcs. The grove reacted, stones hummed, runes pulsed brighter, the wind whispered through the trees like voices speaking in a language she almost understood. She had always feared the flames, yet now, under the gaze of Rylan and Elara, they felt right. Necessary. Destined. And then she sensed him before she saw him. A presence, silent, malevolent, weaving through the shadows at the edge of the grove. Dorian Vale. She didn't know how long he had been watching, nor how close he had come, but she felt his eyes on her, cold and calculating. The hairs on her neck rose, silver sparks flickering in warning. He was patient, cunning, and he knew her power. He knew the potential she carried, and the threat it represented to his plans. Rylan stiffened beside her, every muscle taut, every instinct ready. He glanced at her, eyes locked, conveying the unspoken. You are not alone. But danger waits, Selene. Danger has always waited. Selene drew a slow, shuddering breath. Her mind swirled with visions, with destiny, with fear, and with the impossible, intoxicating pull of Rylan Kaelor's belief in her. I don't know if I can, she whispered, voice breaking. I don't know if I want to. You can, Rylan said softly, yet with an iron certainty. And one day you will. You will embrace it because it is part of you and because there is no other way. His gaze softened, the heat of molten gold eyes melding with something deeper, almost tender. I will stand with you, Selene. I will not falter. I will not leave you alone in this. Not now, not ever. Selene's heart thrummed, an erratic, almost painful rhythm. Desire, fear, hope, longing, They all collided in her chest, each one stronger than the last. She could feel her power pulsing in response, flaring like a living thing, wild, untamed, demanding to be acknowledged. And as she turned her gaze back to the runes, to the altar, to the whispers of destiny echoing through the grove, she realized that she was standing at the threshold of something monumental. She could flee. She could resist. She could deny the fire inside her. But every fiber of her being knew she could not. The howl of wolves shattered the brief calm, a warning that danger was still near, that enemies were circling, that the path forward would be perilous. Selene's fists clenched, silver flames licking her skin, eyes blazing with defiance. The visions of fire and shadow, of devastation and power, of destiny calling her name, pulsed in her mind. She knew now that the world would never allow her to remain hidden, that the mark she bore was no accident, and that the choices she made tonight in this grove would echo far beyond the moonlit forest. And somewhere in the darkness beyond the glow of the runes, Dorian Vale watched. Patient. Calculating. Waiting. Selene Ardyn exhaled slowly, letting the rain of her emotions fall away for just a moment. She was afraid. She was uncertain. She was trembling. But she was no longer running. The pull of destiny, of fire, of the untamed, impossible power within her, demanded that she stay. That she fight. That she awaken. And for the first time in years, standing amidst ancient runes and whispered prophecies, under the watchful eye of Rylan Kaelor, Selene allowed herself to feel something she had long buried, the stirring of hope. The myth had awakened. Selene Ardyn stood in the center of the ancient grove, silver flames dancing along her hands, reflecting in her wide, fearful eyes. The air hummed with the weight of prophecy, with the residual energy of runes glowing softly beneath her feet. She could feel the pull of destiny, the awakening of power she had long feared yet secretly longed for. And yet, in the depths of that fragile calm, a shadow stirred, an enemy that had been waiting for the right moment. The howl came first, low and guttural, cutting through the mist like a blade. Then, as if the night itself answered the call, shapes emerged from the darkness. Shadow beasts, monstrous forms wreathed in black mist, eyes gleaming with malice and hunger. They moved as one, silent and swift, converging on the grove, converging on Selene. Every instinct screamed danger. The air thickened with the scent of wet earth and fur and something darker, older, more malicious. Rylan Kaelor stepped forward, eyes molten gold and unyielding. He shifted, muscles coiling, a low growl vibrating from his chest. Selene, stay close. Don't try to fight alone, he warned, his voice both protective and commanding. She hesitated, heart pounding, flame flickering uncontrollably as fear collided with the stirrings of determination she had felt only moments before. The beasts lunged. Silver flames erupted from Selene's hands in reflex, scorching the edges of the first shadow as it swiped, claws cutting through mist. But there were too many. They came in waves, relentless, pushing her toward the altar, toward the center of her own terror. Rylan moved beside her like a tempest, limbs fluid and deadly, deflecting blows with uncanny precision. He was not invincible. She could see the strain in the set of his shoulders, the flex of his jaw, the way his hands tensed with barely controlled fury. Yet he was her anchor, the one constant amid the chaos. The grove shook as the shadow beasts collided with the runes, black mist swirling, hissing, sparks of magic and flame mixing in the rain-soaked air. Selene's mind raced, every heartbeat a drum of urgency. She could feel the prophecy pressing down on her, the weight of ancient expectation, the eyes of the unseen watching, judging. Her powers flared unpredictably, uncontrolled, but with every pulse she felt the stirring of something greater, a strength that was hers and hers alone. And then the other danger arrived. Rival pack members, faces twisted with suspicion and fear, stepping into the grove as if compelled by tradition and territorial claim. Their leader, a stern figure with eyes like cold steel, raised his hand, voice slicing through the chaos. Selene Ardyn, you have no place here. Leave now before your presence destroys more than it already has. Fear mingled with anger in her chest. She wanted to retreat, to flee, to vanish into the forest that had been her only refuge for so long. Yet the pull of destiny, the weight of prophecy, and the flames burning along her skin would not allow it. She lifted her hands, silver sparks flying, voice trembling but fierce. I won't leave. Not while I am meant to stand here. Not while my power can protect. The pack leader's gaze flickered to Rylan. And you, Kaelor? Will you abandon your people for her? Or choose your pack over this anomaly? Pressure coiled around him like a physical force. Selene felt it, the tension in his stance, the subtle twitch in his hands. She knew the weight of loyalty, the chains of tradition, and she saw the conflict etched across his face. He could choose to fight with her, or he could turn, bowing to the expectations of his pack. Rylan's eyes met hers, molten gold against silver flame. I won't let them dictate this. I won't let fear decide who I stand with, he said, voice low, steady, filled with a quiet, almost unbearable intensity. The connection between them surged, heartbeats sinking, energy pulsing through the grove as if the universe itself acknowledged their bond. She felt both protected and exposed, empowered and terrified all at once. Then the first beast struck again, snapping her focus to survival. Selene reacted instinctively, summoning flames to envelop it. The beast howled, retreating only momentarily before regaining momentum, faster, sharper, hungrier. She felt her strength ebbing even as it surged, every movement a negotiation between fear and instinct, between control and chaos. Rylan's presence was a constant anchor, shifting, attacking, shielding. Their hands brushed as they moved past one another, sparks igniting, not just from her flames, but from the unspoken electric tension binding them together. The fight was no longer only physical. It was a test of trust, of connection, of willpower. Could she depend on him? Could he depend on her? Could they both survive the storm rising in the night? The rival pack surged closer, voices harsh, accusations sharp as daggers. Leave. This is not your place, they cried, but their voices were drowned by the howls, the clash of claws and the roar of silver fire. Selene felt a rising tide of defiance within her, a fire that matched the literal flames now dancing along her limbs. She would not submit. Not to fear. Not to judgment. Not to anyone who would deny her existence, her destiny, her power. Rylan glanced at her, tension in his jaw, yet pride glimmered in his eyes. Stay close. Don't lose focus. We'll make it through, he murmured, more to steady her than himself. And in that moment, Selene realized something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years. She was not alone. Even in the chaos, even against the impossible, there was a hand to hold, a presence that could shoulder the storm beside her. The shadow beasts pressed harder. One lunged from the tree, claws slicing through the mist. Selene dodged, flames roaring in response, and Rylan intercepted, striking the creature with a ferocity that made her pulse race. Each strike, each flick of silver fire, each coordinated movement deepened the bond between them, the rhythm of predator and protector merging into a singular dance of survival. And yet, even as the battle raged, the grove itself seemed to react. The runes flared, faintly at first, then brighter, resonating with her silver flames, with her resolve, with the pulse of destiny threading through the night. The forest whispered around her, leaves brushing against skin like quiet encouragement, roots shifting imperceptibly as if guiding her, shaping the battlefield in her favor. But the struggle was far from over. Voices rose among the rival pack, demanding action, accusing Selene of recklessness, warning Rylan of consequences. The pressure to choose, to betray, to abandon or defend, hung over them both like a storm cloud ready to burst. Selene's chest heaved. Fear, exhaustion, and desperation fought for dominance within her, and yet the silver flames surged hotter, brighter, responding not just to danger, but to the resolve growing in her heart. And then, finally, amidst the roar of beasts and shouting of packs, the inevitable came: separation. A coordinated strike of shadow beasts forced Selene to retreat, stumbling into the trees at the edge of the grove, her hands ablaze, body aching, lungs heaving. Rylan's voice called after her, molten gold eyes blazing even in the distance. Selene, don't give in. We'll fight back, together. Her heart thundered in her chest as she slipped into the shadowed forest, branches scraping her skin, leaves clinging wet and cold to her hair. Her breaths were ragged, silver flames sputtering faintly, reflecting the tremor of fear and determination inside her. Danger was everywhere. The distant howl of wolves, the whispers of approaching shadow, the oppressive presence of rival packs. Yet beneath the fear, beneath the pounding adrenaline, there was clarity. She would not run forever. She would fight. She would survive. And she would return. Somewhere in the darkness, Rylan Kaelor watched, his form a sentinel of molten gold and shadow, every instinct taut, ready to strike. And somewhere else, hidden, patient, calculating, Dorian Vale observed, waiting for the fractures, waiting for the mistakes, waiting for the moment when the prophecy might falter. Selene pressed her back to a tree, silver flames curling faintly along her fingers, heartbeat echoing like a drum in the silent forest. She was alone but not defeated. She was hunted but not broken. The world had fought back, but she, Selene Ardyn, would rise again. Selene Ardyn pressed herself against the cold stone wall of the cave, her silver flames flickering faintly along her fingertips as if seeking reassurance. The forest outside was alive with distant howls, the echo of the first clash still reverberating in her chest. But here, inside this hollow refuge carved by time and hidden from prying eyes, the world slowed. The tension that had been taut and biting through the night seemed to soften in the warm glow of a fire Rylan Kaelor had coaxed to life with a flick of his wrist. The flames cast dancing shadows across the walls, illuminating the sharp angles of the cave and the faint moss that clung stubbornly to its cracks, painting the scene with intimacy and quiet danger. Rylan sat a few paces from her, back against the rough stone, eyes molten gold catching the firelight. There was a subtle weariness in his stance, the sort of fatigue that came from constant vigilance and the weight of leadership, but it was tempered with a deliberate calm that radiated toward her, grounding her in a way the chaos outside never could. Selene's chest rose and fell unevenly, her heartbeat echoing the dance of flame and shadow, the cadence of anxiety mingling with the faint, undeniable pull toward him. "I didn't expect the attack to come so soon," Rylan murmured, voice low, tinged with fatigue yet unshakable. "Dorian Vale is patient, but he's relentless. He waits for moments of weakness, moments like tonight." He shifted slightly, and the firelight glimmered in the subtle curve of his jaw, the hardened lines softened by exhaustion. "I've faced many threats before, but—" His voice faltered almost imperceptibly, a confession too quiet for the outside world but clear enough for Selene. Selene tilted her head, her silver flames pulsing gently, a reflection of the storm inside her. She wanted to respond, to offer courage or insight, but words felt too heavy, too vulnerable in the raw intimacy of the cave. Instead, she let silence hang for a beat, allowing him to continue, to unburden himself in ways she recognized even if she didn't fully understand. "I've lost people," Rylan admitted finally, the words weighted, soaked with a vulnerability he rarely allowed to surface. "Pack members, friends, family. And sometimes I wonder if standing strong only made me colder, made me unapproachable, unfeeling. I've buried more than I care to count, Selene." His gaze shifted briefly toward the fire, then returned to her, intense and unwavering. "But tonight with you here, I don't feel so alone. And that terrifies me." Selene's breath caught. The raw honesty of his voice, the unguarded confession, mirrored a part of herself she rarely revealed. The isolation, the burden of power, the relentless fear of being misunderstood. Her flames rose instinctively, silver sparks flickering across her hands. She began, voice trembling. "I carry things no one should. Power that should have been kept hidden, feared even by those closest to me. My own pack exiled me because of it. I've never allowed anyone to see it all, not really. And yet," her eyes met his, searching, desperate. "And yet I don't want to hide from you. Can I trust you?" The words lingered in the space between them, a fragile bridge, trembling but alive. Rylan's expression softened, his hand brushing the ground, the warmth of firelight accentuating the subtle strength of his presence. "Selene," he began, voice deep, resonant, unwavering. "I see you, all of you. Every flicker of flame, every scar, every shadow you try to hide, I see it. And I won't turn away. Not now. Not ever." A shiver of both fear and longing rippled through her. She could feel the magnetic pull of him, the tension threading through every nerve. Their hands brushed almost accidentally as she shifted to adjust her position, the contact sending a jolt of warmth and electricity up her arm, a tether between them that neither dared sever. Her pulse raced, breaths quickened, yet a strange calm settled over her chest, a heartbeat in sync with his, if only for a fleeting moment. The cave seemed to shrink around them, walls closing softly with shadows and firelight, the world outside reduced to faint echoes and distant danger. For the first time in what felt like centuries, Selene allowed herself to breathe fully, to let her guard drop just enough to exist without constant vigilance. Rylan's eyes never left hers, molten gold burning with unspoken intensity, and in that gaze she glimpsed not just a protector but a kindred spirit, someone who understood loss, exile, and the lonely burden of power. The fire crackled, sparks dancing in the air like tiny silver fireflies, and Selene felt her heart tighten. She wanted to lean closer, to touch, to test the invisible threads binding them, to see if this fragile connection could bear the weight of reality outside this cave. She swallowed, lips dry, the almost tangible pull of desire threading through her, teasing, coaxing, daring. Rylan's voice, quiet but firm, broke the tension in a way only he could. "I'm not here to judge you," he said, leaning forward slightly, eyes locking with hers. "I'm here because I choose to be. Every moment, every decision. I choose you. And if you want me to, I will wait until you're ready to trust me completely. But I need you to know this: I won't abandon you." Selene's silver flames danced higher as if in response, shadows flickering across the cave walls. Her chest heaved, every instinct screaming caution even as another part of her, raw, hungry, hopeful, urged her closer. She could feel the weight of the world pressing from outside, but inside this cave, inside this fragile bubble of intimacy and firelight, she tasted something dangerous and beautiful. Connection, understanding, perhaps even the first whisper of love. A gentle pause stretched between them, filled with unspoken thoughts, suppressed confessions, and the quiet tremor of desire. Selene's fingers inched closer to his, a tentative brush against warmth and strength. Sparks of electricity traced along their skin where hands nearly met, a promise and a challenge all at once. The almost kiss hung in the air, unresolved, tantalizing, a delicate crescendo of trust and tension that neither could deny. Her voice finally broke the silence, soft, hesitant yet strong. "Rylan, if I let myself, if I allow this, can I really trust you?" He closed the distance just slightly, the warmth of his presence washing over her like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. "Selene," he whispered, eyes molten gold and unwavering, "I see you. I see every part of you, even the parts you fear. You are not alone. Not now, not ever. I promise you that." Her heart thundered. Her silver flames flared once, bright and erratic, then settled, dancing calmly in her palms. The forest outside, distant as it was, seemed to hold its breath. Wolves howled in the distance, a chorus that threaded through the night like a warning, a song of survival. Danger still lingered beyond the cave's mouth, and yet here, inside the fragile cocoon of firelight and shared vulnerability, Selene let herself feel, fully and dangerously, the pull of connection. She shifted closer, letting the warmth of him brush against her own, a heartbeat away from surrender, from the embrace that would seal trust, that would tether her heart to his. The cave walls seemed to shrink further, enclosing them in shadows and fire, intimacy and possibility. The world outside, the rival packs, the shadow beasts, the ever-present threat of Dorian Vale, existed, but only faintly, a distant echo compared to the undeniable reality of now. And yet, even in this tender moment, Selene felt the pull of destiny pressing against her chest. The silver flames were not just her power, they were her truth, her responsibility, her curse, and her salvation. Rylan's belief in her, unwavering and unflinching, acted like a mirror, reflecting not only her potential but the path she had been running from her entire life. The almost kiss lingered, the sparks of touch trembling on the edge of decision, a delicate promise of intimacy yet to come, a fragile tether between two wounded souls daring to trust. Selene exhaled slowly, letting the firelight wash over her face, her eyes flickering between flame and shadow, between fear and hope. She didn't know if she could trust the world. She didn't know if she could fully trust Rylan yet. But she did know this. Here in the quiet intimacy of the cave she felt alive, seen, and for the first time in years unafraid to feel. The fire crackled again, sending sparks upward into the shadowed ceiling. Outside, the distant howl of wolves warned that danger was never far. But inside here, in the quiet communion of flame and molten gold gaze, Selene Ardyn dared to believe. In trust, in connection, and perhaps in the beginning of love. The dawn had barely touched the horizon when Selene Ardyn emerged from the shadows of the forest, silver flames still faintly trailing along her fingertips, flickering with every breath of wind. The remnants of the previous night's battle clung to her, the ache in her muscles, the sting of bruises forming, and the relentless thrum of her heart still echoing in her chest. She had thought the night's struggle was the worst she would face. She had been wrong. The council had been waiting. Their faces were masks of cold judgment, eyes sharp, scanning, calculating. Even from a distance, Selene felt the weight of their gaze pressing down, suffocating. Every instinct told her to retreat, to vanish, to disappear into the safety of the forest, but something in her, some stubborn spark of defiance, kept her rooted in place. Elara Thorn, one of the council elders began, voice sharp, carrying the authority of centuries, you have brought danger upon us all by harboring her. This anomaly, this child of silver flame. His hand gestured toward Selene, who stood trembling yet defiant. She cannot be allowed to continue unchecked. Her power will destroy us. Mark my words, it will consume everything we hold sacred. Selene's stomach dropped. The words burned like acid. She had expected fear. She had expected caution. She had not expected betrayal from those she had once considered the only semblance of family. Her heart constricted in sudden sharp pain. The pack that had once rejected her, the elders who had cast her out for being dangerous, they were now denouncing her before her very eyes. Selene began, voice breaking, but no sound seemed to hold against the rising chorus of judgment. Every step she had taken, every act of courage, every life she had tried to save, all reduced to accusation and condemnation. She glanced toward Rylan Kaelor. His eyes were molten gold, steady yet conflicted. His jaw clenched, every muscle taut with tension. He had been forced to choose, to align himself with pack loyalty or with the one he had vowed to protect. The council's words escalated, twisting the prophecy she had been told into something monstrous. Her power will destroy us all. She is the mark of chaos, the flame that cannot be tamed, the harbinger of our ruin. Every syllable fell like a hammer upon her chest. The forest seemed to shiver around her, trees bending slightly as if to mirror her grief. Her silver flames, responding to the surge of emotion, flared in sharp arcs, illuminating her trembling form, catching even the council off guard. Rylan hesitated, torn. Every instinct screamed to protect her, to step forward and challenge the council, yet the chains of duty tugged at his shoulders, a weight he had carried since birth. His gaze met hers, and in that instant, all words became unnecessary. He understood. He was struggling to reconcile love and loyalty, to balance the bond they had forged against the expectations of centuries. The elder's voice cut through the tension like a knife. Step forward, Rylan Kaelor. Choose your people. Choose the safety of the pack over her. Or face the consequences yourself. Selene's chest heaved, silver flames licking higher as anger coiled around her spine. Every rejection, every exile, every whispered accusation from the past surged into the present, fueling a fire far greater than the one that danced on her fingertips. She could feel it, raw and untamed, a fragment of the power she had kept hidden for so long, now aching to be released. I am not your sacrifice, she cried, voice ringing through the grove, echoing against stone and bark alike. Her silver flames erupted, brighter than ever, snaking upward in wild, beautiful arcs, searing the edges of the clearing, casting jagged shadows across the faces of the council and rival pack members alike. Sparks leapt into the air, painting the forest in silver light, and for a heartbeat the world seemed to hold still. Rylan's eyes widened, molten gold blazing with a mix of awe and terror. He had never seen her unleash even a fraction of her power so freely, so recklessly, and yet there was no hesitation in her movement. Every ounce of her being radiated defiance, desperation, and the raw beauty of strength finally unbound. She was magnificent. She was dangerous. She was everything they had feared and, more importantly, everything they could not ignore. The council recoiled, shields raised, voices rising in panicked opposition. Contain her, one shouted. She must be stopped. Shadow beasts, drawn to the surge of her power, materialized from the surrounding darkness, their forms coalescing into snarling, oppressive masses. Selene's pulse surged. She was alone yet no longer afraid. She was a storm incarnate, a silver blaze against the night. Rylan stepped forward, positioning himself between her and the encroaching council, every muscle taut, every motion fluid and precise. Selene, he called, voice steady despite the chaos. "I am with you. Whatever comes, we face it together. You are not alone." Her gaze met his, molten gold meeting silver flame, and in that instant the weight of betrayal and despair shifted into something else. A bond forged not by convenience or tradition, but by choice, by trust, by unyielding connection. She did not need the approval of the council. She did not need to apologize for the power coursing through her veins. She only needed to survive, to fight, and to reclaim the destiny that had always been hers. With a sweep of her hands, silver flames spiraled outward, forcing back shadow beasts and council members alike. Trees shuddered under the heat of her energy, leaves curling, bark scorched, the forest alive with the vibration of her power. Her chest burned, every breath a test, yet she moved with the rhythm of fire, controlled chaos, an unstoppable force of raw will. Yet even as she unleashed a glimpse of her full potential, the emotional toll pressed upon her shoulders. Heartbreak gnawed at her from the council's denunciation. Fear lingered in her bones at the thought of Dorian Vale and his patient, calculating gaze somewhere in the shadows. And through it all, Rylan's unwavering stance reminded her that even in devastation, there could be hope. The council screamed, packs quarreled, and chaos erupted across the clearing. Yet Selene Ardyn stood unyielding, silver flames licking higher, eyes blazing, heart pounding. Every insult, every accusation, every betrayal had driven her to this precipice, and she had not fallen. She had risen. Rylan's presence beside her was a steady flame in the storm, molten gold eyes reflecting her own fire. He did not reach for her, did not shield her further. Instead he simply stood, a sentinel, a promise, a tether. Even in the midst of betrayal, even when the world had turned against them, he remained. Selene's voice, raw and commanding, rang through the grove, carrying over the chaos. "You may fear me. You may denounce me. You may try to stop me. But I will not be silenced. I will not be controlled. I am not your sacrifice." The forest quivered in response. Shadow beasts retreated reluctantly, sensing the surge of power and conviction radiating from her. And somewhere, hidden in the periphery, Dorian Vale's eyes gleamed with calculated patience. The storm had only just begun, and he waited, knowing that this fracture, this clash, would shape the battles yet to come. Selene's chest heaved as she took a step back into the shadows, retreating not out of fear but strategy, letting the forest swallow her while leaving behind the echo of her silver blaze. Rylan Kaelor remained, torn between love and duty, every instinct pulling him toward her while the expectations of the pack clawed at him. The grove was chaos incarnate, packs shouting, shadows shifting, flames dancing, but in the center of it all one truth remained clear. Selene Ardyn had unleashed a fragment of her true power. And nothing, not prophecy, not counsel, not betrayal, could diminish what she had become. The first light of dawn pierced the horizon, spilling pale gold across the ruined clearing where the ritual had begun. Smoke and ash clung to the air, remnants of shadow beasts and shattered runes, carrying the acrid scent of fear and fire. The council had scattered, their voices broken by panic, their authority crumbling under the weight of Selene's unleashed power. Yet the greatest danger remained. Dorian Vale lurking in the periphery, a shadow coiled in malice, and the innocent wolves caught between prophecy, fear, and ambition. Selene Ardyn stood at the edge of the grove, silver flames dancing along her arms and shoulders, reflecting the tension in her chest. Every nerve was alive with anticipation, every breath drawn deep with purpose. She had fled before, she had hidden, she had been cast aside. But now, the moment demanded that she rise fully into the power that had been feared since birth. The forest around her seemed to sense the shift, the trees quivering subtly, leaves rustling in a rhythm that matched the beat of her heart, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Rylan Kaelor moved beside her, molten gold eyes never leaving her form. He had survived the night, had kept watch over the grove, and had fought tooth and claw alongside her. But he understood more than anyone that tonight would be unlike any battle before. His hand brushed against hers, a fleeting contact, grounding her, connecting them, and yet even in that gesture, there was no underestimation of the danger that lay ahead. From the shadows, Dorian Vale emerged. The wind seemed to follow him, twisting, curling, and stirring the ash in a sinister dance. His eyes glimmered with predatory anticipation, calculating, cold, certain that Selene would falter. "So the child of silver flame dares to return," he hissed, voice like smoke and steel. "Do you truly think you can control what burns within you?" Selene's jaw tightened. She could feel the centuries of fear, exile, and accusation rising in her chest, feeding the flames that now consumed her. "I am not your sacrifice," she declared, voice ringing through the grove like a clarion bell, "and I will not be controlled. Not by prophecy. Not by fear. Not by you." Her words were a vow, a challenge, and a declaration of self that sent the forest trembling. The silver flames leapt higher, wrapping her in a halo of power that pulsed with ancestral resonance. Voices, whispers at first, then rising in strength, echoed through the trees. They were not her own, but the voices of ancestors long past, guiding, protecting, lending their strength to hers. "Claim your destiny. Own the flame. Stand as you were born to stand," they murmured, filling the night air with both awe and weighty authority. Dorian advanced, shadow beasts materializing at his command, snarling, claws scratching against stone and earth. He struck with speed, attempting to scatter her flames, but Selene met each attack with precise, fierce control. Silver fire arced from her fingertips, hurling shadows backward, light piercing darkness, heat searing through cold mist. The forest responded violently. Branches cracked, small quakes rippled beneath her feet, and ancient ruins hidden beneath moss and ivy shivered, awakened by the pulse of her unleashed power. Rylan intercepted a shadow beast leaping toward a young wolf pup, claws striking air with lethal precision. His voice rang out, steady and commanding, "Selene, focus. Protect them." He did not hesitate. The silver flames responded, surging higher, twisting and shaping into forms she had never fully imagined. Fire coalesced into serpentine arcs, lashing outward, intercepting attacks before they could reach the innocent, spiraling around Rylan, shielding him from the edge of a lethal strike. Each movement was fluid, instinctual, yet rooted in conscious control, a harmony of power and precision she had only glimpsed in dreams. The earth itself trembled beneath her, roots lifting from the soil, stones shifting, as though the grove itself recognized her as rightful heir to a force long feared. Sparks of light shot upward, scattering through mist, illuminating Dorian's expression. A mixture of rage, disbelief, and the first flicker of fear he had shown in centuries. Selene's heart roared, but beneath the fury was clarity. Every moment of exile, every whispered fear of her silver flame, every accusation from the council had led her here. And now she stood fully, wholly unafraid. "I am the child of silver flame," she declared, voice soaring, carrying over the chaos. "I will protect those who cannot protect themselves. I will not be your pawn. I will not be your fear. I will rise and I will stand." The forest seemed to respond, roots gripping, trees swaying in rhythm with her words. A shockwave rippled through the clearing, scattering shadow beasts, shaking the grove like the first tremors of a coming storm. Sparks of light erupted from the ruins, illuminating carvings long hidden, as if the ancestors themselves were blessing her ascension. Dorian snarled, advancing further, shadows coiling around him like living armor. But Selene did not falter. Flames lashed forward, curling and slicing through darkness, scattering the beasts, forcing him to take step after careful step. Her silver fire was not destructive for destruction's sake. It was protection, precision, power in service of purpose. Every breath, every heartbeat, every surge of flame was a testament to the strength she had forged in exile. Rylan moved closer, eyes locking with hers. "You are unstoppable," he murmured, awe and love threading through every word. "Not because of your power but because of who you are. Because you will not yield." His fingers brushed hers again, grounding, tethering, affirming that even in this maelstrom connection and trust remained unbroken. The standoff stretched, seconds bleeding into eternity. Dorian weighed his options, calculating, sensing the shift. The forest itself had chosen, subtly bending to her presence, the pulse of magic in the air undeniable. His shadow beasts faltered slightly, reacting to the surge of ancestral energy, and for the first time the imperious predator realized. Selene Ardyn was not merely powerful. She was transformed, unshakable, and feared for a reason far beyond physical strength. Selene inhaled deeply, silver flames wrapping higher, spiraling around her like a protective storm. She could feel every ounce of her being, Every fear, every pain, every betrayal, channeling into controlled fury. This was no longer the frightened exile running from the past. This was the daughter of prophecy, the child of flame, the force that could not be bent, broken, or subdued. And in that moment she understood the truth of the forest's whispers, the words of ancestors echoing in every leaf and stone. She was not just a survivor. She was a sovereign of power, a protector of the innocent, and a reckoning for those who would seek to control her. Dorian faltered, shadows flickering unnaturally as he sensed the undeniable shift in balance. The grove seemed alive with anticipation, waiting to see what she would do next. Selene's silver flames licked higher, her voice firm, unwavering. "I am not your sacrifice. I am not your weapon. I am the storm you cannot contain." Rylan's presence beside her was steady, molten gold eyes reflecting awe and devotion. Together they were a force of fire and flame, bond and trust, love and purpose. Shadow beasts retreated, the air hummed with energy, and the forest responded, ancient ruins awakening, light bursting through cracks, trees quivering, leaves scattering in radiant arcs. Selene Ardyn had claimed her power, not with hesitation, not with fear, but with full, blazing conviction. She was transformed, revered, and the world, packs, councils, enemies and shadows alike, would never forget her name. The grove fell into an uneasy quiet. Smoke lingered in the air, curling like restless spirits above shattered branches and scorched earth. The echo of Selene Ardyn's silver flames had faded, leaving behind only the residual hum of energy vibrating in the soil and air. Wolves, some trembling, some watchful, scattered cautiously among the trees, ears twitching, sensing both the danger that had passed and the force that remained. Selene stood amidst it all, chest heaving, hair damp with sweat and rain, eyes still blazing with molten silver fire even as it flickered down to ember-like glows. Her hands, though still trembling, bore the residue of her triumph, of her defiance, of every ounce of power she had fought to claim. She had faced Dorian Vale, faced shadow beasts, faced the judgment of councils, packs and prophecy itself, and she had emerged not broken but sovereign. Yet the silence brought a different kind of weight. The grove seemed to hold its breath, as if aware that the story was far from over, that every choice now carried echoes far beyond the visible world. Selene's gaze swept across the forest, lingering on the distant shadows where enemies and observers surely watched, measuring her power, questioning her morality. And in that instant she realized something she had known but never fully embraced. Power is never simple. And those who see it, those who witness it, must choose. Rylan Kaelor moved to her side, molten gold eyes soft yet fierce, reflecting both awe and worry. "Selene," he said quietly, voice carrying over the subtle rustle of leaves, "the world may fear what you are, but I see you. Do you understand what you've done tonight?" Selene's chest rose and fell, eyes meeting his. There was fire, there was triumph, but there was also vulnerability, a raw truth that came from exposing herself fully. "I've claimed it," she whispered, voice rough but steady. "Not for them. Not for the prophecy. Not even for you." Her gaze shifted outward, toward the horizon where shadowed hills hinted at future threats. "I've claimed it for me. For every moment I was made to feel small, unworthy or dangerous. For every exile. For every fear I held alone." The moment stretched, pregnant with reflection, with quiet power, with moral tension. And then the questions began to surface. Not just hers, but the questions that the forest, the wolves, and the unseen observers seemed to whisper into the very air. Would you have chosen her, or feared her too? Could you trust her, even if she defied every expectation, even if she burned everything you thought you knew? The grove seemed to pulse with the weight of that question. Every shadowed tree, every trembling leaf, every distant howl carried the sense that destiny was not dictated by prophecy alone. It was dictated by choices. By trust. By fear. By love. And the listeners, those who followed her journey, were invited into that moral tension, into the heart of the fire she had become. Selene turned fully toward Rylan, molten gold eyes meeting silver flame, and in the unspoken bond between them, there was a silent acknowledgement. She had survived betrayal, she had claimed her power, and yet the journey was far from complete. Love and duty, trust and fear, destiny and morality, all were threads interwoven into the tapestry of her story. And now she offered the audience the same choice she had fought to embrace herself. Would you have chosen me, or feared me? Her voice, soft but echoing through the grove, carried a weight no blade or spell could pierce. The words lingered, vibrating in the hush of aftermath, resonating not just in the forest but within every heart listening, every mind imagining her silver flames and unyielding courage. The wind shifted, stirring the embers that still floated like fireflies, carrying the subtle scent of ash and rain. The forest responded as if to underscore her question, a quiet, powerful pause in the rhythm of life, where morality and destiny seemed to hover, suspended on the edge of possibility. Then, as if recognizing the audience directly, as if bridging the world of the story and the world beyond the grove, the narrator's voice softened, lyrical, compelling. If Selene's fire lit something inside you, if her courage, her defiance, her refusal to be bound, even by prophecy itself, stirred a spark, then subscribe to Anne's romance collections. Here we tell tales that burn. Tales that do not fade quietly into night, but blaze, echoing through every choice, every heart, every story waiting to be told. And even as the words hung in the air, the forest seemed to whisper in anticipation. The grove trembled subtly beneath unseen power. Wolves shifted nervously. Distant shadows lurked with eyes reflecting the uncertainty of fate yet to come. Selene's silver flames had dimmed, but the glow in her heart, the fire of choice, of defiance, of becoming, remained steadfast, unyielding. The last note of tension carried a haunting question into the audience's mind. Would you stand by her? Would you fear her? Could you love her even in the face of all that she is? Untamed, powerful, unbound? The scene faded slowly, leaving the grove in a haze of mist, embers drifting like silent stars. The answers would not come easily. They would linger. They would haunt. And in that lingering question, Selene Ardyn's story, and the journey of those who followed her, continued, unresolved, eternal and burning. The forest was quiet now, but the quiet was not peace. It pressed against Selene Ardyn's senses like a living thing, every leaf trembling, every root vibrating with residual energy from the silver flames she had unleashed. Her chest heaved from exertion, heart still echoing the rhythm of the chaos she had left behind, yet in that rhythm there was purpose. She had survived. She had claimed her power. And yet survival felt fragile against the weight of what she knew was coming. Rylan Kaelor walked beside her, shoulders tense, every step measured. His molten gold eyes scanned the darkened grove, ever watchful, ever protective, reflecting both awe and unspoken concern. Even now, as the smoke curled into the air, remnants of burned leaves drifting like falling stars, he understood that victory had come at a cost. The council's denouncement, the scattered shadow beasts, the fracturing of alliances, all these threads had been pulled taut, and the tension of what lay ahead was nearly unbearable. Selene's silver flames had dimmed to a soft, lingering glow along her arms, as though honoring the forest, as though acknowledging the presence of unseen eyes watching from the shadows. Her fingers brushed against the charred ground, and the subtle vibration beneath her touch spoke of something far older than prophecy, far deeper than fear. The earth itself seemed to hum with anticipation, whispering secrets she could almost understand, messages from ancestors, echoes of battles yet to come, warnings etched into the very soil beneath her feet. A shiver ran through the forest. Not from the wind, not from the chill of night, but from something else. Something patient. Something waiting. Selene's gaze lifted, scanning the perimeter where the shadows deepened, where branches swayed though the air was still. And then she heard it, a voice low, threaded with menace as though carried on the breath of the forest itself. She is not the only one. The words slid into her mind, slippery and cold, yet resonant, echoing across the grove like a promise and a threat. Selene froze, silver flames flickering once more, and Rylan's hand found hers instinctively, grounding her. His grip was firm, unwavering, yet she could feel the tension running through him, mirroring her own. The voice did not come from any shadow beast or enemy they could see. It was something older, something patient, waiting for the perfect moment to rise. Selene's mind raced. Who spoke? Another child of fire? Another threat waiting beyond the veil of night and forest? Every fiber of her being screamed for action, for movement, yet a deeper instinct told her to observe, to sense, to prepare. Power alone would not suffice. Understanding would. And the forest, alive in every way it could be, seemed to nod in agreement, whispering secrets only she could perceive. Rylan's voice broke through, low, steady, protective. Whatever it is, Selene, whatever comes next, we face it together. I will not let it take you. His words were simple, yet each syllable carried weight, tethering her in the moment, binding her to trust and connection even in the face of unseen threats. Selene's eyes swept across the grove, lingering on every shadow, every swaying branch, every glimmer of light caught on the dew. The ground beneath them quivered slightly, small tremors, subtle yet undeniable. The forest itself seemed to react to the prophecy, to the unspoken threats, to the lingering echo of silver flames. Her silver aura flickered faintly as if acknowledging the presence of something more. Something ancient, something vast, something waiting beyond comprehension. The wind shifted, carrying scents she could not place. Smoke, rain, and something older, wilder, predatory. It brushed against her skin and stirred a primal response in her chest. She inhaled deeply, sensing that the battle they had fought was only a fragment, that the prophecy was far from fulfilled, that Dorian Vale had only been a precursor, a herald of far greater challenges yet to come. Rylan mirrored her tension, eyes narrowing, muscles coiled, prepared for threat yet unseen. Yet despite the impending danger, there was a calm between them, a fragile, precious connection built from trust, fire, and unspoken understanding. The world could tremble, shadows could stir, enemies could plot, but together they were formidable. Together they were more than mere wolves. They were a force the forest itself recognized, acknowledged, and perhaps feared. And then, faintly, almost impossibly, a whisper curled around them again, carried by the wind and echoing through roots and trees. The true alpha hasn't risen, yet. Selene's gaze sharpened, eyes reflecting the glimmer of dawn light breaking through mist and smoke. The words were not a threat she could ignore. They were a summons, a herald of battles that would shape the future, a challenge that demanded attention. She felt the weight of destiny settle upon her shoulders. Not the destiny imposed by counsel or prophecy, but the destiny of choice, of courage, of fire. Rylan's hand squeezed hers. Whatever comes, he said softly, we'll face it. Together. His words were both promise and anchor, an affirmation that even as the shadows whispered and the forest trembled, she would not stand alone. Selene inhaled deeply, drawing in the scent of ash, rain, and growing power. The embers of her silver flame lingered faintly, whispering reminders of strength, resilience, and untamed potential. She could feel it coiling within her, a storm of fire and instinct and destiny, waiting for the right moment to ignite again. The grove seemed to shiver one last time as if acknowledging the pause between chapters, the calm before the storm of what was to come. Wolves stirred, distant howls echoed faintly, and in the silence, every creature sensed that Selene Ardyn had not only survived, not only claimed her power, but had set into motion a chain of events that would ripple across packs, forests, and prophecies alike. And as they walked away, footsteps soft but deliberate, the shadowed voice lingered in the periphery, a reminder that the story was far from over. The silver flames of Selene's legacy had burned, yes, but the night still held secrets, the future still held threats, and the true alpha had yet to rise. The mist thickened, curling around roots and branches, and as Selene and Rylan disappeared into the embrace of the forest, the whisper carried into the unseen distance, leaving one final thought lingering in the air. This isn't over. It has only just begun. The world waited. And so did the story.